I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the Dude and the Golan. I want to remind everybody to subscribe and follow us on all sites, Rumble, YouTube, everywhere. Please follow, subscribe, and give us that 5 stars. It's very helpful. And right off the bat, I thought this story, just want to go with an amusing story, is Jasmine Crockett was grilling Lee Zeldin yesterday. I'm not sure either if you guys saw this, but this Mensa member that sadly now will not lose her seat in Texas unless the Supreme Court overturns that ruling. She accused him of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. And, well, Jasmine, it's a very popular Jewish name, I hate to tell you. And the donations were from a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, not the Jeffrey Epstein.
It's funny on one hand, it's sad on the other. These are people that are actually running the show, actually governing over us. You know what? I've read names before that were very similar to other names, and I guess the only difference between me and the people in government is that I check first before I open my mouth. Simple as that.
It's, first of all, that story is hilarious. She
Ridiculous.
accused him of taking money from the wrong Epstein, so she's an absolute moron. She's also a phony and a fraud. She was raised in a wealthy Texas neighborhood. She's pretending that she's a hood rat. She's absolutely brainless. And if that is the best that we can do, see, this has always been the problem with inner city people that claim to represent the inner cities, the Al Sharptons of the world. They get the worst of the worst. And then the white liberals elevate these people and make them the spokesperson for a lot of really intelligent Black people. You don't need that. There's a lot of smart people out there that should be taking the mantle, but somehow these people are the ones that get elevated. I heard Batya Ungar-Sargon talking about how when her eyes were opened and there was a study, she was anti-Trump. She was full of Trump derangement syndrome. Anyone who voted for Trump, she said she thought was a racist. And then she saw this study come out of Yale or Harvard or something. And it said that there was a difference between the way conservatives and liberals talk to Black people. And she's like, oh, this is going to be good. We're going to get them now, those racists. And it turned out that the conservatives speak the same way to Black people as they do to white people. And liberals dumb it down. They think that they're talking to idiots, so they dumb down their actual vocabulary and speech when they're talking to minorities. And she goes, wow, that was an eye-opening moment. So this thing, eye-opening, we have a moron that's elected
one of the many. And go on, just to wrap this up, somebody really should tell. By the way, if your name was Jeffrey Epstein, would you change it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a great Saturday Night Live sketch where the guy's name was Harvey Epstein. And he's like, it's unfortunate, 2 names that I don't want to have, but you can bet if I'm going into public office with this name, I've got to be a good governor. So it was very funny. And yes, I think it speaks exactly to this. I would change my name so fast, it would make your head spin.
It's like, I'll never forget, I heard a comedian say, sadly, after the whole JonBenet Ramsey thing, like that name is sort of, nobody's naming their kid again, JonBenet. Like that ended the JonBenet naming.
Yeah, sorry, Adolf.
In more sombering news, there's a new poll out by Marist that has Republicans in the generic congressional ballots down by 14 points. The problem is going on right now is prices, and 57% of them say that prices is the biggest thing that is obviously swaying them. And I don't know when the big beautiful bill will kick in. I don't know if that's going to lower prices, but this is a massive issue.
It's always the budget. It's always the economy. It's always money. I mean, in the end, if you keep your populace happy in terms of how much money they have in their pocket and how easily they can afford to buy groceries and pay for gas and all the standard kitchen table conversations, as they call them, then basically you can get away with anything in terms of governing. Right? The minute people are starting to go, whoa, I feel like I have less money in my pocket, no matter how many times you tell them, no, everything's going well, the economy's great. They know how much money is in their pockets. The one thing you'll never be able to gaslight them into or convince them of, even if there are markers, the market is better or something like that, people just don't buy that because they know how much bacon they're able to buy with their dollars. So at the end of the day, it's a major, major issue because things don't turn around quickly. This is like turning around one of those giant ships where it's like you need a lot of room, you need a lot of time. And as we talked about the other day, people want instant instant results. And like we were talking about with the tariffs, for instance, it's like in the long run, these may end up being something that blows everybody hair back and makes everybody feel like, wow, America's in charge again and I'm paying less taxes and all the rest. But until that moment, everyone's going to complain about the prices. It's just the way it is.
So, man, it's still far out. I don't know 100%. I don't trust polling necessarily a year out. I do think there is time for this to, but I just want everybody to know. I want people to understand this list. So it's lowering prices, 57%. Controlling immigration is next on the list at 16. Reducing crime is at 9%. Ending the war between Ukraine and Russia is 7%. And then one step lower, maintaining peace between Israel and Gaza, 6%. And then at 4%, eliminating drug traffic from Latin America. Thank God they can't blame this one on the Jews, this poll, Mend.
Wait,
Fine,
what did
anyway.
those percents represent?
Sorry?
The percentage points that you were just mentioning, what does that represent?
What people are voting the most for. What is...
So, I mean, he did just remove some tariffs from produce coming from South America and coffee and some other stuff. I think that's smart moves. I think Trump realized with the sweep that the Democrats just did in those recent elections for local mayors and stuff like that, that people are not happy. They're not in a position, they're not in a place where they thought they would be by now. So he's adjusting to that. So he's aware of it. I think this idea of sending out a $2,000 check is a bad idea. And I'm not saying as far as it being a bad idea for them to gain votes. I'm sure that'll be great. People are going to be dancing in the streets with their $2,000 check. I just think you lower tax. Lowering tax is a better way to go than issuing a $2,000 check, which people are going to blow in a day, and then they're going to be angry again. And if you lower tax, that's something that's more permanent. It's our money anyway. So why tax us and then send us back a little piece of it? Just lower tax.
Okay, well said. And I don't want to mislead viewers that this poll is an outlier according to Real Clear Politics. And the problem with Real Clear Politics and all these polling sites is they're an aggregate, right? So they take all the polls and they average them out. So it's really 4.8% lead, which is still more than a lead than I want them to have, and more than a lead goal and than they should have. So yes, this might be an outlier poll. Obviously, Marist has been way off in the last elections. I do not trust them at all. But this is something Republicans have to look at. We shouldn't take for granted, think this is an automatic thing, because I don't think it is, even though abortion's not on the ballot anymore. So I just wanted to be honest about this exact poll. So yeah.
Well, there are plenty of other polls, though. There's the Quinnipiac poll recently, a couple of months ago now, that said that more than 3-1, both Republicans and Democrats across the board see Trump's tariffs hurting the U.S. economy in the short term. And a lot of those people say, some of them said, oh, in the long term, maybe it's different. A lot of them aren't feeling that way because they don't understand how tariffs work, and they certainly don't understand economic policy. So what they're saying is, prices went up or whatever it is, and they're saying this is how it's going to stay. And it's the number one thing across the board on almost every poll. Voters say higher prices than everyone concerned. So it's not just this one.
Well said. Mend, moving on, though, to this is really a disgrace. I mean, I don't know what the word for this is other than it's a disgrace. There's a video of 6 Democrats made a video. Lawmakers released a video urging service members to defy illegal orders from the army.
Yeah, so you have elected officials in our government talking straight to the military, enlisted men and women, our service members, saying, don't listen to the government. It's insane. I know Pete Hegseth spoke out about that, but there should be consequences for elected officials telling people that work for the government not to listen to government orders. I know that they framed it as illegal orders. There are no illegal orders being given out. These are orders to protect the homeland. So I think something must be done. The fact that to date, Ilhan Omar, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, any of these people haven't been censured by Congress for all of the insane things and things that they've been doing over the last 4 years just tells you how weak the GOP is. They are not being led correctly, and something must be done about that.
Well, you're referring to messaging more than anything. The messaging has got to be better. The messaging, everything, from the
messaging is part of the problem with the economy.
Yeah, but that's what I was about
Trump
to say.
could actually have better messaging on the things that he's done for this economy and let people know where we are and where we're going. That would be very helpful, and it would be important to get it out and help with the upcoming midterms.
Well, I'll say too that some of these ideas, you've mentioned a number of times, $2,000 check. right? How this is, you don't think this is a good idea. This is not the first time we've seen a politician do this. Like every few years, somebody in Washington's like, I got an idea. Let's give every American thousands of dollars. That'll fix everything. And that what they mean by that, like, is as if they've like figured out the Raiders of the Lost Ark here. They're like, all right, this way, everybody will get some money and they can spend it and they can go out and buy new TVs and book vacations and splurge on gadgets and whatever, and it'll jumpstart the economy. But that has literally never happened in all, I mean, and there's polling on all of this. In all of the times they've suddenly sent checks to everybody, people either panic save it because they're like, if they're sending me a check,
Not
something
during
bad's
COVID.
coming.
Not during
Well,
COVID.
but what was the number one thing that people did when they got checks from the government? Pay down their debt. Doesn't jumpstart anything. There was even a moment I remember, I don't remember what president it was, it would have been Biden, who sent checks to everybody. And I think it was during COVID. And there was even a moment when there was something had come out that was like, I hope they don't save this. Please spend it. We need the economy to feel something. This just doesn't work. And so there's a lot of things, like you're saying, the messaging of it, some of them are bad ideas and some of them are good ideas with bad messaging. They got to fix all of this, or else this thing that is everyone's number one concern is going to be the thing that's their downfall.
Listen, I think you're both 100% correct. And as I've suggested many times on the show, they need somebody like men to actually do the messaging. Listen, Caroline Levitt is great at what she does, but this is a specific area that needs messaging. The economy needs to be spoken about in a certain way, and you have to have the brain for that. I mean, it's like Ben Stein is Ben Stein. Have a well-spoken economist talking about this stuff. There are people like Steve Moore, who just dropped out of the Heritage Foundation, but who runs the Prosperity for Growth, who could easily be out there talking about this stuff and trying to explain it to the American people. There's nothing wrong with bringing him up once a week in a press conference, man. Not telling people what they're seeing isn't reality.
I agree with you. Don't tell people not to believe their lying wallets. Like, that just doesn't work. But they could have somebody, I don't think it needs to be an economist. And I think infographics and just someone like Caroline Levitt just laying it out would be great. So just laying out what this administration has done thus far and what we have to look forward to in the next 2 weeks.
Well said. And Golan, we went into this yesterday, but I think it's worth bringing up again, is this congresswoman from, where is she from? She's from one of the islands, Plaskett, who was directly texting
British
with,
Virgin Islands, I believe.
Yeah.
the Virgin Islands, right? From the Virgin Islands, thank you. I'm going to say one of the islands, the Virgin Islands, and where she was directly texting with
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
She's a Democrat, by the way.
Yeah, but here's the did you read the latest where she defended herself? It's my favorite thing. She basically went on this kind of rant where she was saying, "Hey, people are attacking me for me texting Jeffrey Epstein." But she's basically claiming that she's Sherlock Holmes. No, I was going to uncover the truth by texting him. I was going to get information. And she said, the quote was, "You get information from people where you can." And so she made it seem like I am just out here running my own private investigation, and me texting Jeffrey Epstein was meant to trap him into giving me some sort of information. And, you should really be thanking me. Doesn't mean I'm friendly with these people, is the other thing she said. Means I was in there trying to suss out like Law and Order. It was quite possibly one of the worst attempts at excuse making you can possibly imagine. Even if it was true, it was weak justification, and it clearly was not true. And the way that she stammered her way through pretending like she suddenly had become, an investigator on a CBS procedural was pretty ridiculous.
I believe she also spoke up when Matt Taibbi was testifying in front of Congress about the Twitter files and everything that was going on there. And instead of talking about what he uncovered, she was the one who was attacking him for being a fake journalist. This is a guy who's won multiple awards for journalism, long history, stellar history. She was attacking him for being a fake journalist. So this is who we're talking about. Again, it's another loser, retard, whatever you want to call her, that was somehow propped up to be the representative for the BVI. It's head scratcher.
Yeah, and it's an even bigger head scratcher for people go on what's going on around with Qatar. You see it all over X, and there's absolutely no denying it. And I know X is not the real world, but it is a lot of people on it, and it does seep out into the real world. It seeps out into the pod sphere, obviously. And you saw Greg Abbott yesterday saying the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR are both designated as terrorist organizations, and I think people are waiting to find out when Trump is going to name Qatar a terrorist organization. And that's if he ever does, and not Qatar, but the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist organization, because Qatar is the Muslim Brotherhood. And I think people are really starting to get a little leery of this weird connection.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are getting it yet, because there are so many people, especially people right now on the woke right, that are continuing to prop up people like Qatar and even people like the Muslim Brotherhood, frankly. But there's been legislation proposed. There's been designations by the U.S. Department of State of offshoots of some of these organizations. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet, I actually, when I was reading about this, sometimes certain things are so obvious to you that you don't think about it. I was reading about how Greg Abbott had declared CAIR to be a terrorist organization. And I was like, yeah. And then as I was reading the article, and it was like, and the Muslim Brotherhood. And I was like, that must be a typo. Muslim Brotherhood's been a terrorist organization forever, right? I'm looking it up. I'm like, that's when they decided it was today? Today? I'm like, oh, at a federal level, it must already be. It's not. I was actually shocked, because in my mind, it was such a foregone conclusion that as someone who studies this and as someone who considers himself kind of an expert on this, my brain just couldn't accept the fact that it hadn't already happened. So the fact that it isn't is purely political. There's no other answer besides that. It's not like they don't have evidence. It's not like they don't know. CAIR, for God's sake, has already been an unindicted co-conspirator in a terrorist case. And Muslim Brotherhood has been connected to dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of terrorist cases. So the fact that this is a new determination is shocking to me. And the fact that it's only at the state level, as we discussed yesterday, as opposed to federal, is shameful. I'm going to use that word. I think shameful is the right word.
Men, somebody actually brought up, if the president's not going to do it, every Republican state should do this.
They should.
Follow.
I think we should do a online petition urging the president to declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization, just as Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and every country worth its weight that knows what these people are about, they've outlawed it. And
half these countries that we're doing deal with right now have said this already. So it's weird. It is bizarre that it hasn't happened yet.
Well, Qatar cannot be happy at this moment because Saudi just got the 35s. And the Saudis and the Qataris hate each other. They want nothing to do with each other because Qatar is aligned with Iran. I don't know if a lot of people understand this. Qatar is aligned with Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood, and Saudi Arabia is aligned with the West. And Trump is playing them all. He's playing nice footsies with all of them. But Qatar is not our friend. And I love it that online, you were talking about X before and all the people out there that are claiming everybody's being paid by the Mossad. All of those people are being paid by Qatar. Qatar is the one that is flooding this country with influence money.
This is the thing I truly don't understand, man. I do not understand how all of these people are going to post after post talk about, oh, there's another Israeli shell. Did you get your $7,000? And completely ignore the fact that hundreds of millions, in some cases billions of dollars, has been poured into this country, every aspect of this country, by Qatar, including all the other people on X.
Well, what we like doing on X is we respond with the video of that Malik guy talking about how his fund's first investment, he's an Iranian American backed by Qatar, his fund's first investment was in the Tucker Carlson network. Okay, Tucker is Qatar first. That's why he's running cover for Sharia law. He's everything that he is saying now is in stark contrast to what he used to say, and that gives away the game.
Listen, I think not to enough people, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're both 100% correct. Except the problem is, as you brought up with these people, is they prop up Iran, right, by saying, well, Iran's not that bad. They only went to 60% enrichment, and I love it as Coleman Hughes brought up to Dave Smith, can you name me a country that has brought it that far that didn't get a nuclear missile? And he couldn't. He could not. Okay. The goal of enrichment is to get a nuclear weapon. Okay. Plain and simple. You either build it or you have France do it for you like they did with Iraq. The bigger thing that's also going on today is that the ceasefire, there is no ceasefire. Hamas has not given up their arms. They haven't. They went past the yellow line, and Israel is forced again to be the bad guys. And
quote unquote.
America has come to their defense a little bit. But man, this isn't a ceasefire. I mean, they're constantly attacking. They got the 200 terrorists stuck in a tunnel underneath. They're trying to broker a deal to get these people out, which is absolute insanity. And I just don't see it. I don't get I understand what Trump is trying to do, but you can't make people be the biggest issue that Bush did too is make them in the image of God. Can't, other countries with nation building, you can't force barbarians to not be barbarians. It's like, remember there was a movie called Caveman? I think it was with Brendan Fraser, right? Where
No,
he's
that's
like
Encino Man.
Encino Man. Thank you. Sorry about that. I think it was a movie called, but Encino Man, right? Where they bring men from the year, from the Fred Flintstone years, and they put them here at this time. That's what Trump is trying to do. The world is trying to do with Hamas.
I'm not sure about that. I think Trump's looking at the bigger picture. He doesn't give a crap about Hamas. That's not the people that he said he'll deal with them fairly. And they're going to have to give up their weapons, and they got to give up all the hostages. So far, they've given up all the living hostages and most of the dead hostages. And then what they're doing now.
In other words, they have not returned all of the hostages. They were supposed to return with the ceasefire agreement. Okay.
They were supposed to return all the hostages within 72 hours. It's been 3 weeks or whatever. They're not living up to their end of the bargain. Who cares? I don't think Trump cares about that. He's basically moving to the next step, and he's saying, listen, get them back to hostages, and you got to lay down your weapons. And if you don't, either the Israelis will go in there or somebody will go in there and take it from you. He's not even, it's like the mouse that's stealing food out of the lion's bowl. He's not focusing on them. He's focusing on this international stabilization force, all the countries that are going to sign on to rebuild. That's where Trump's head is at. And he's like, look, if they keep on screwing around, he knows that he has a big stick. He could send the Israelis in there and they'll finish those guys off, and then he'll move on with the plan. So that's where his head is at. And it's clear from the vote yesterday at the United Nations, where he got all the UN and all their countries to sign on to his stabilization force, where he's going to be in charge of it until 2028, I believe. He's going to be the leader of this thing. Okay.
Yeah, the problem is who's the leader after that?
Hamas did reject it, but he doesn't need Hamas to accept it.
I understand, except you understand that what you just said, while I understand that it's about strength, is exactly how Israel gets screwed every single time. They say, here is a list of things that must be done on both sides for a ceasefire to take effect. And then Israel does everything they're supposed to do, and the terrorists don't. And then everyone goes, all right, good enough. One of you did it, so let's move on to the next one. And then that becomes normalized. So it's exactly what happened with Hezbollah.
They haven't done that, right?
It's exactly what's happening now. It's exactly what happened with Hezbollah. You're going to go back there. You're going to get disarmed. You're going to go back. And what they did, they built up the largest arsenal anyone's ever seen of rockets. All right. So what happened here? Similar thing. You're going to disarm. You're going to give us the bodies. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. They've done none of those things, and now are going further, crossing yellow lines, continuing not only to not disarm, they are rearming and stockpiling weapons. They're continuing to obstruct hostage, the remains of hostages. They're not reducing military capabilities whatsoever. They're exploiting repositioning.
Okay,
they're doing all the stuff. And you know what happened? Same thing that happens every time with Israel. All right, good enough. Let's go to the UN and do a resolution to give them a state.
Well, no, that wasn't what it was.
The ceasefire.
The UN resolution had nothing to
do.
The UN resolution had nothing to do with the peace brokered by Trump. The UN resolution was to get the United Nations to back this international force and the Trump 21-point peace plan, right? So far, we've gotten back all the living hostages and most of the dead hostages. What's going to be the next step?
Okay, so we had some of this stuff they were supposed to do done, and now we went to the next step already.
Next
Same
step
as always.
The next step is disarmament.
Disarmament. So, okay, so the order is changed. So we'll take it, and then hopefully they disarm later. Now the carrot and the stick.
There's two bodies left there. There's 2 bodies left there. Is that what it is? We're down to like 2 or 3 or 4 something.
I believe it's 3 now.
3. Okay. 3 bodies are left there, and they're saying that they need the Egyptians. The Egyptians brought in some equipment to go find those bodies, and it might take a little more time. Great. Moving on. Disarm. And if they don't, what happens?
Tell me.
I think what Golan's point meant is We've been down this path
I know that
before.
point. I get that. And it's what happened with UNIFIL in Lebanon, where they were supposed to demilitarize. UNIFIL was supposed to make sure that they don't arm up. And under the United Nations knows sometimes in their own compounds, Hezbollah stored missiles and built the strongest militia
UNIFIL
in the
literally helped
world.
these guys rebuy stockpiles that no one's ever seen of rockets.
I get that.
And then,
but
and
right
then you
here,
know what
in
happened?
this
You know what
one,
happened
I'm
after
not,
that? And you know
I'm
what
not
happened
angry
after that? You know what happened after that? Same thing that happens every time. They went, good enough. Let's move on to the next step. We'll disarm later. And then when Israel finally had to attack because they didn't disarm and they continued to do what they're doing now, stockpile weapons, exactly the same as they're doing now. Everyone was like, whoa, Israel.
Yeah,
Why
I
would
don't
you
care about
attack
everyone.
the
I
poor
I
Lebanese?
care about what the next step is. And the next step here is
care
disarming
about
Hamas.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
So I guess
That is the next step. Like, we don't
wishful
have to get
thinking is
angry at
what we're
Trump
doing.
because we know what the next step is. If that doesn't happen, if
Mhm.
someone says, you know what?
Yeah.
We're going to move to the next step, but we're going to skip the disarmament thing and we're just going to start. I don't even know what the other points are, but start with something else. You're like, oh, okay, that's when we could have this discussion. I'll say,
Okay.
yep, huge misstep. But right now, I don't think it's a misstep. I think we're still in the process.
Well, it's a
might be
misstep
wrong.
when listen, if they weren't crossing the yellow line and constantly doing this, and
They
Israel
got killed. Israel
Then
took them out, and they took out another commander that wasn't even there. They said, you know what? You're going to cross the yellow line? We know where this battalion commander lives, and they just bombed his house and took him out. I love it. I think it's great.
I understand that you love it. The whole point, though, sometimes with this thing, go on, was to de-escalate not just tensions there, but sort of to get Israel out of the front pages of the news. Now, at the end of the day, we all know, go on, that there's the only force that's going in there to kill Hamas will be the Israelis, okay? And again, I don't care how many signatures you have from all of those countries around the world. You know, you could have it from the god of Saudi Arabia, the god of Qatar saying, you guys signed it, it doesn't matter. But it's Israel that's going to have to do this, go on. And again, they're going to come out looking like the bad guys, no matter how it's
No matter what they do,
projected.
they're going to look like the bad guys. It doesn't matter. At this point, you just have to get the job done. So
we're
the next
we're
step
gonna
is
ignore
disarmament,
the-
and if they don't disarm,
ignore the
Israel will go in and take them
deadlines
out.
and ignore the deadlines and wishful thinking. I guess it's a way to go. Not my
All right,
way to go.
moving
but
on.
I guess it's a way to go.
Let's see
Listen,
where this goes.
Listen, you know, look, it's complicated. I just think it's important to talk about. The other thing I think is extremely important to talk about is, listen, you're witnessing right now the podcast wars. There's no doubt about it, and it's one of the most bizarre things I've witnessed in my life is this cult, this alignment, this really wonky alignment go on. But it all comes down to the people that keep on getting blasted by the Megyn Kellys are Jewish people. And whether it's Dave Rubin or whether it's Ben Shapiro, it's not a coincidence.
She attacked Dave Rubin. She was just on
Yeah.
his show like 2 weeks ago.
And that's what people are bringing up.
She
People
was
are
just
bringing up
interviewing
the
Ben
fact-
Shapiro 5 seconds ago. Too.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
That's exactly right. And people were bringing up the fact that she was not defending, you know, she defends a friend, right? Well, Dave Rubin, who's gay with 2 kids, I believe, so he's higher up on the intersectionality list. He should be, go on at least. But she's just attacking Dave Rubin when Dave Rubin had the most innocuous, nice suggestion for J.D. Vance. It was like nothing out of the, you know, listen, I have a friend the other night that said to me, he was a Christian, and he said this to me, plain and simple. He said, if you're friends with a Nazi, you are a Nazi. Now, I'm not saying anybody's a Nazi, but if you have inclinations of anti-Semitism or love of Nazism or love of fascism or love of Stalinism, you are one of them. Okay, that's cut and dry. I am not friends with anybody that doesn't like Asian people. Okay, I had a discussion with this on the phone with men before. Okay, if you're an Asian hater, I'm not friends with you anymore. Okay, and it's a very bizarre thing, and I really think this is going to have a major impact, as I've discussed before.
Yeah, look, we've had this conversation enough times, and they're doing the same thing over and over again to know that some of them are paid off and some of them are algorithmic opportunists, right? Again, I don't believe Megyn Kelly is paid off, but I do believe that she sees how many people are following Tucker, how many people are
Yes.
following Nick Fuentes, how many people are following all the a-holes on the woke right, and is like, this is a group of people I don't want to alienate. So you know what? I'm going to say anyone attacking Tucker, they're the bad guy. Okay. Similar to what Tucker did with Iran and with all the other Nazis that he had on his program. Anyone attacking these people, they're the bad guy. And so she's basically pulling something from the Tucker playbook and using it to make sure that her clout gets to remain up. I read something interesting, though. I read just someone's commentary about it that said the thing that's interesting is that when you listen to someone like Nick Fuentes, twisted, stupid, hateful as he might be, he believes what he's saying. I think he is just a twisted little Nazi troll. He really is. I don't think he's faking that. I think what he's saying every time he vomits any words out of his mouth, they're real things that popped into his diseased brain, and he vomited them out. And some people laugh up his vomit. And that, hey, whatever floats their boat, I guess. Megyn doesn't believe it. Megyn is just an opportunist who is just saying anti-Semitism gets clicks like fentanyl gets addicts. I think I'm going to go ahead and snort up all this anti-Semitism and see how many people follow me like a Pied Piper. It's worse in some ways because you can spot a Nazi. You can go, okay, that now I'm going to avoid, or I'm going to attack, or I'm going to do whatever you're going to do with a Nazi. Someone who is propping up Nazis for their own personal gain, I would argue that those people actually, they're even worse because they're willing to go all the way into Nazi territory just for clout. Shame. Shameful again. Another shameful thing.
And we've talked about Megyn Kelly a few times on the show, and it's clear that she will go whichever way the wind blows. There's no spine. There's no moral fiber.
Well, let me read you an exact quote from her, okay? Megyn Kelly accuses those offended by Tucker Carlson mainstreaming bigotry of being the new BLM. Now, I have no idea what that means. I got to be honest with you, man. I consider myself a fairly astute observer. I can understand certain things. I have no idea what the hell that means that just came out of Megyn Kelly's mouth. And, again, I will say this over and over again to people that talk about the same things sometimes. As I said to Ben Stein one time when I was writing too much, and he said, what do you think George Will's been doing for the past 50 years? That's what people do. I mean, if people keep on talking, you're going to keep talking about what they're doing. You have to keep coming back at them and not letting them get away with it. Sorry to interrupt.
So she's been, wishy-washy for a long time. She's not a Nazi. She's just playing what she thinks is
she just plays a Nazi
to the audience, right? She's just playing to the audience, but she's also smart enough to know exactly what she's doing. That, I think, is the rub.
And
she's
very
not
dangerous.
Stupid. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's been doing it for a long time. When she was on MSNBC and promoting trans kids, she knew what she was doing. She was on that show. She was talking to that audience. Now she seems to think that the Tucker train is the train she wants to hitch her carriage to. Okay, we know where you are. That was one of the things that we saw with this whole Israel-Hamas thing. It's not to educate people about how bad terrorists that chop up kids and kill families and burn them alive. That's not what it was about. It was about seeing who people are without their masks, and the masks all came off in this campaign.
Well said. And I want to move on just a little bit more.
Can I just answer your
please.
Question earlier, which is what do I think she meant by the new BLM? I think what she's trying to do, and she's doing it in order to cow people into silence, right? I think that she's saying, like what BLM was doing, where if you pushed back against their ideological agenda, you're going to get attacked, you're going to get canceled, you're going to get punished, you're going to get deplatformed or ostracized or whatever it is. I think she's saying that now, because she made a point of not just saying those targeting Tucker. She said, usually pro-Israel, she threw that in there, are now the new BLM, as in if you question Israel or if you disagree with us on Israel, like what BLM did, we will get attacked and deplatformed and ostracized and criticized and all the rest. I think that's the game she's trying to play, of saying, oh, just like we all know how bad BLM was, and now Israel supporters are the same. I think that's what she's trying to do, is that false conflation.
Well done in explaining it, Golan. I still don't understand it, but thank you. It's very interesting because I had a very, you've used this word a couple of times on the show, innocuous post about the Epstein files. And I had quite a few people respond to me. I wonder why the government's doing it now. And which goes to the point of what Golan brought up yesterday. Once you're in this thing, I'm not accusing you. Okay, so take yourself out of the equation on this one, please. And for many people, they're going to now say, well, why are they releasing it now? It's this never ending.
As if that question is like there's a suspicious reason they're doing it now.
Well, no, there is. That's 100%. That's there's no doubt about it. That's 100% what they were saying to me. I don't know what to respond to said person, but man, that's the next evolution.
Who cares? Who cares? The right thing to do was to release the files.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I'm saying. Again,
I get it.
You're
I get it. There's
speaking
going to
for
be all kinds of
yourself.
nutcases out there. Now Candace Owens somehow is blaming Egypt for Charlie Kirk's death. Let them go down these crazy rabbit holes. These people are insane. Just because there are insane people doesn't mean that we should not do what the right thing to do is. And the right thing to do here was do that massive dump, because obviously we can't trust the government on anything they've been doing. They haven't figured out the Butler shooter or anything about that guy. They haven't figured out anything about Charlie Kirk's killer. That guy did definitely not act alone. There's no way that this Kash Patel run FBI agency is doing a great job. They just don't know what they're doing.
Well, 1 second.
I've never seen Kash Patel stumble and mumble and bumble.
1 second.
It seems like that's all that's going on there.
1 second. Are you getting confused like you did yesterday with the Butler shooter and the Charlie Kirk
I'm
shooter?
just saying that between the stuff that the government tells us is no big deal. We can't release the Epstein files. There's nothing there. It's a non-there. It's a nothing burger. I don't believe them. I don't believe them. I want it all released. Dump it.
Okay, first
and
of all,
let the
you
chips
can't
fall where they
release
may.
certain things as a trial is going on. As we
What
learned,
trial is going on?
As this person will be brought into is going with what's his name, Robinson, as he's being brought up and tried. You have to be very careful with your public statements. You have to be extremely careful. This isn't Butler. Okay, they're two totally
They just bungled
separate.
the Comey case. They bungled it.
Yes, the 36-year-old prosecutor in Florida totally bungled and yesterday was skeptical of it, but when you read what actually
What came
happened
out today, she admitted that they didn't show the grand jury all the evidence.
Yeah,
like
she
bungling a case.
She
The
absolutely
guy's
said
going to
it.
walk for sure.
But
So
he was
you're gonna
always
tell me
going to
those
walk.
are the same guys we want to trust with when there's a giant stash of 200,000 documents or whatever. Most of it is nonsense. Most of it is going to be garbage. It's going to be useless. But maybe in there you'll find something
I
like
still can't figure out what
like Larry Summers' texts back and forth with Epstein asking him for dating advice to one of his subordinates, a girl that was, I think, a student working for him. Or maybe it was an employee, but it was a subordinate. I mean, these are damning things that are coming out. Great. It came out that other Democrat was chatting with Epstein. Great.
Golan, I don't know if he just heard what I said, but you can't talk about a case that's actively going on because as this bungled prosecutor...
That has nothing to do with Epstein, right?
We weren't talking about Epstein. You brought up Charlie Kirk's assassin.
You were talking about Epstein a second ago.
You brought up
Epstein
Golan,
thing.
am I wrong?
Said, look, I said I don't trust them about Epstein because they have a history of not knowing what the hell they're doing.
That's not what.
Case example, they don't know what happened to Charlie Kirk. Case example, they don't know what happened to Butler. They don't know anything. So you're going to tell me, oh, we should just trust them? I don't. I'm sorry, I don't.
I think we also have to be careful of conflating when a 30-something-year-old screws up on the job and the entire government apparatus, both the Biden White House and the Biden White House and the Trump White House. Hang on.
I'm going to say I'm sorry on that one. You're talking about the guy who helped orchestrate a coup against the president, who is now our president, Comey, did this against Trump in term one, and they put a 31-year-old inexperienced imbecile on the case and messed it all up.
But yeah, but by the way,
you're conflating.
I'm not conflating. I'm showing you that the government doesn't know what they're doing. That's what I'm saying.
You're saying because they put a 36-year-old on the case, they don't know what they're doing?
No, I don't care how old she is. She could have been very competent at 36. I'm saying they put someone on who bungled the case.
Yeah. I think.
You know who didn't bungle cases? You know who didn't bungle any cases? The guys prosecuting the J6ers, and they did thousands of them, and they locked them up for tons of years right away.
The difference is they
had Comey on the hook.
They didn't need to have cases, and the Comey thing was always going to be an extremely rough case. And this isn't coming from Democrats. This is coming from extreme conservative legal people. This was always going to be an extremely rough case. There's a reason why she bungled the case, okay? There's a reason why she did, okay? That's just a reality. And again, going back to Kash Patel, he has nothing to do with Crook's Golan. Nothing. He has zero to do with and this Robinson thing in with
How does
Charlie
he have
Kirk.
nothing to do with cooks?
Sorry,
How does he have nothing to do with cooks?
he was not the FBI director at the time.
He's the FBI director now.
So what do you? So let me ask you a question. We don't know what they're investigating or what they're not investigating.
We don't know what we don't know. There are unknown unknowns.
And I'm asking a question here for you. You're saying that you don't trust, so you're saying we don't know what they're investigating, but your assumption, because you don't trust the government, is that they're screwing up this investigation.
I am saying that under the previous administration, they got Trump indicted on 36
But
counts.
that's because they own the judges. That's because they didn't have to show anything. That's because you had judges that took Alvin Bragg taking 5 misdemeanors and putting them into.
It sounds like you're making up a lot of excuses for an inept org. There's a guy in charge now who could reopen all the investigations, get to the bottom of it, find out who tried to kill his boss. We're not seeing any of that. There's a guy in charge now who could figure out who else was involved with this Charlie Kirk assassination.
Why do you assume there's somebody else involved with the Charlie Kirk thing, other than the person that they found with the gun, and other than, yes, they're investigating the text strands and all those things. They can't release what they're investigating, man. They're simply not allowed to do that. Go on.
Well, that's why I'm asking this question, Amend. I want to ask it a little bit of a different way. I'm genuinely curious. Are you, in general, forget whether it's this case or that case, in general, are you saying because you don't trust the government, your assumption is whether it's the Charlie Kirk case, whether it's the Trump attempted assassination, whether it's whatever, Epstein, your assumption is they are going to screw up all the investigations. So in general, they should release all the information to the public and let us all become our own investigators?
No,
like Candace Owens.
No. What I'm saying is that
Candace Owens has 5 million viewers per episode, so it's no small thing. But I'm really wondering, is this like the Epstein thing? That's what you wanted. Do you want that on a regular basis?
They have the documents there. That's an easy one. The other stuff. What
I'm asking though is with the Epstein one, and I don't mean to. I'm trying not to repeat the question. So, but the Biden White House went through everything. They weren't able to find any smoking guns. The Trump White House, brand new, etch a sketch, shake, shake, shake. We started over. Trump White House went through everything and said, we were really excited about showing you the smoking gun. We went through everything. There's nothing here.
That's not what they said. That is not what they said. Pam Bondi came out and said that they have hundreds of hours of videotapes and she has the dossier with all the names on her desk and she's going to release it. That's what they said.
She didn't say.
That's what they said. I'll tell you what it smells like.
She didn't say that. She didn't say that.
She did say that.
No, that's what the podcasters told you she said.
What did she say?
What she said was the folder, the file is on my desk.
Sorry, the file.
And what that means is the file that she was going to go through is on her desk, which is fine. We know this already. Then they went through it. And then they said, we made a big show because we really thought we were going to find some stuff. And ultimately, there's nothing here. Nobody believed them. Hang on. Nobody believed them because we talked about how the optics report. We all agree on that. Nobody believed them because you made a big show out of it. Next time, shut up and put up instead of talking first. We all agreed on that. We had a whole conversation about it. Now, all this stuff is released to the public. And what we're finding is, I understand that you didn't like Larry Summers' exchange, but it wasn't illegal. It's just bad optics. And now he had to resign. And then someone else, what's her name?
He didn't resign, by the way.
Or not resign. He said like whatever he said,
but he
stepped away from it. But then there's the Virgin Islands chick, and she's like, she was texting it. Not illegal, but optics are bad. All right, so now she's gonna have to try and defend herself. She just did so very poorly, and we'll see what happens to her career from here forward. All these people haven't done anything illegal so far. Nothing. So far the nothing burger is correct, except for the conspiracy theories that everyone's going to spin. Oh, but now there's all this stuff that's been dumped. So in general, I'm asking, since that was the way this one went down, we didn't believe them. So give everyone, all of us, become citizen investigators. Is that how you are saying you want all of these things to go down from here forward?
No, what I'm saying is that it's becoming more and more apparent that there's a deep state operation that's been going on that tried to assassinate Trump. Now, I don't think they put the shooter on the roof. I think what they did is they left space for a shooter to get on a roof. They didn't put the Secret Service agents up there. They didn't have snipers taking out anyone that was on the roof. It was clear that was amateur hour. The woman came out and said the roof was too steep, which is moronic. It doesn't make any sense.
It was a slope.
It was a slope.
There was a steeper slope on the other roof where the Secret Service agents were. So what is she even talking about? Clearly it was a lie.
Agree with
she had to resign.
We both agree with you.
It seems like there's a deep state thing going on where they tried to take out Trump a couple of times, and someone took out Charlie Kirk, and that may have been a deep state thing too. And this same deep state may have gotten Pam Bondi to not release some of these Epstein stuff that she said she had, like the videos. Okay, there's a giant cache of documents of 200,000 documents. Release it. And they are. And great. And I'm happy about it.
And so
Now we can move on.
But is there anything else out there that could be a deep state thing? I mean, because all of those are assumptions, right? Nobody knows. You just said it. Podcasters say it's deep state thing. Okay, so now it's
As
deep
old
state
Rummy used to say, there are known knowns and there are unknown unknowns, and it's the known knowns that we know and the unknown unknowns
right.
we don't even
So
know we don't
I'm
know.
asking, since those other two things are deep state things too, should they release all the information about the Charlie Kirk shooting and let us all sift
No,
through
I
it
think
until we
Cash
figure
Patel
it
should
out?
get on that. I think he should get on that
Well,
and
he
start over
is-
from the
he
bottom
is
and say,
on
hey,
that.
boss, I'm going to get to the end of this. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to know exactly what went on. We've gotten zero. You don't even have the FBI coming out making a statement that they're going to restart the investigation.
Again, they can't come out and talk about.
They can't say we're going to do an investigation. They can't say we don't trust anything the previous
Golan,
administration
is
did.
he not listening to a word I'm saying? He's like literally
You're telling
not
me that they
listening to.
can't say anything.
He's literally not listening to a word I'm saying. You can't
It-
talk about an open investigation. You're not allowed to do it. You're not. You're allowed to
So
say
you're not
we're-
allowed to come out and say we're going to have an investigation?
They are What are you talking about? He's going to be on trial soon. You're
Who
not
is?
allowed to talk about it. Robinson's going to be on trial. He's in jail right now. What do you think? They let him out on bail?
I'm not
On no
talking
cash
about that.
bail? They're not allowed to talk about any of it. You kids, it's literally the defense could then use that, and you could take anything out of court. Okay, you could take any. You cannot talk about this Robinson thing.
You
I don't
can't
know
talk
what's-
about an investigation into the Secret Service to find out why those agents weren't put on that roof in Butler,
Okay, again,
Pennsylvania.
you're conflating two different stories.
I'm not conflating anything.
Yes,
I'm
you
telling you
are.
that
That's
there's
crooks.
the
That's crooks. It's not.
I get it. And this administration or the previous administration, but the three-letter agencies that work for these administrations have a history of chicanery. There's something going on, and we want to know. We want them to get to the bottom of it.
Yes,
That's all I'm saying.
except you can't conflate. What are you, Candace Owens now? You're trying to conflate.
What can't I conflate? I can't conflate that the FBI did a shit job before and they're still doing a terrible job.
And crooks. You simply cannot do it. They're two totally separate cases where one guy, they actually have him in jail.
Do you know know what the common thing is with both cases?
With the Mossad?
No,
Are you going to go? Are you going to go down the Candace route now?
That's cute. That's cute. It looks like
That was funny. That was funny.
looks like that was a good one. It looks like there's a deep state conspiracy to get rid of these guys. Charlie Kirk would have been the president of the United States in 4, 8, whatever, 12 years. He would have been there. The guy was on track. He was tracking to be there. He was a powerhouse. And all of a sudden he gets shot in the neck by a guy who was supposed to not be there because the local PD was supposed to be on that roof and they weren't. Why weren't they?
Go on. We want to wrap up, but I want to say something. Michael Bodden and I have brought this up before, and this is the major issue. What he's talking about is why Alex Jones does so well and why Candace Owens does so well. And a lot of it starts with 9/11. And Michael Bodden brought up one of my favorite things that he ever said is we live in a country that, the cops and the robbers, the cops always win, the cowboys always win. And people in our country cannot accept sometimes that the robbers won that day. The robbers won. And they just were able to do, we had tons of things that should have gotten those people arrested. That's a whole different story go on about the pilots and the simulation schools and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the bad guys just win. And it's said that Charlie Kirk got assassinated. Do I believe there's a deep plot by the deep state? Absolutely. No, I don't believe that. I could be proven wrong one day and somebody might hate me for saying that. I don't believe that to be anywhere near close to the truth. Do I believe that with crooks? Yeah, I believe that's highly likely. I believe that's highly likely with crooks because of the way they dealt with the situation.
I'm curious to see how the whole thing shakes out. Look, man, I think that the beautiful thing about, and I'm not saying you're a conspiracy theorist at all, but I'm saying the beautiful thing about conspiracy theories is that they're unfalsifiable, right? So if these things are deep state, great. If they're not deep state, you can't prove they're not. And me trying to is just going to make everyone think they're more deep state. And so the more questions like that we ask, sure, if we just don't trust the government, then okay, then that's where we live, is we don't trust anything they tell us. And
that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the previous administration and the three-letter agencies clearly were working against Trump. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, we would. None of
Yeah.
us are disagreeing,
Yeah.
and we agree with
And
you
then this
100.
guy Cooks took shots at Trump, and we know nothing about him, and his house was wiped, and nobody ever interviewed. Not one
We
journalist went to
brought this
interview
up
his
yesterday.
parents.
We
We
talked about
agree
it
with
yesterday.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
We agree with you
So-
on that 100. Yes, we would
So,
love
and then
to
we
see.
have, and then separately we have this Epstein thing where there's a whole bunch of documents, and they're going to dump it, and people were against it, people were for it. I was for it.
What's
I
your
don't see the downside.
What we're saying is don't conflate everything. It is. I mean, what I'm
I'm not
simply saying is
conflating. The only thing I was conflating was
you
the
brought them three things up at one time.
three-letter agencies have been doing a terrible job for the past, let's say, 5 years, and it doesn't seem like they're doing a better job now. If this was my boss had an assassination attempt against him, and I was the one in charge of tracking down assassins and figuring out how that happened. It's 9 months in. There's nobody else that was brought to trial. There's no information that was put out. There's nothing. We hear nothing about it. They never even did under the previous administration. FBI never did those public statements like Judah said yesterday. They never came out and made all these public statements about the ongoing investigation, what they were doing, none of it. And under Kash Patel, we're not seeing any of it either. So I'm just saying, one, Kash Patel should be doing a better job. And two, when it comes to the Epstein thing, glad they released the documents.
Okay, but again, please, like I say, you're conflating three things at the same time. And I agree with you on two of the three things for the most part, pretty much 100%. I agree with you on the Crooks thing, 100%. And I agree with you on the Epstein thing, 100%. My point to you was no matter how much you release, there's always going to be people where you're, in a sense,
there's gonna be conspiracy theories that are going to run around and Earth is flat.
again, but you're perpetuating it by bringing up the Charlie Kirk thing. Well, they have the guy in prison right now where he will be put on trial. He probably will be found guilty. Whether or not they allow cameras in the court, it's a different story. I hope they do. I hope they bring up all the list of all the people that he was talking about. I hope more people are arrested if they were talking about it. Yes, I will have a little patience in the judicial system with this guy Robinson. Okay, I will. I'm affording them the luxury right now of that. Did they act stupidly in the beginning? 100% with that guy that screamed, "I did it," and they put him in jail, and he ended up being a sex offender. Was that a horrible move? Yeah, him and Pam Bondi for being seasoned pros as far as television goes have made some of the biggest, stupidest blunders I've ever seen in my life. We all agree that they have made horrific blunders. Just terrible stuff you might want to be fired for. Okay? Do I believe Kash Patel might be in over his head? Yeah, I believe Kash Patel might be over his head right now. But as far as the Charlie Kirk thing, I'm not going there, and I will let the justice system hopefully handle itself with respect when it comes to that. But on that note, we have run out of time. Go on, your final thoughts on that. I'm just curious.
The final thoughts are, I think we've covered it. I think my final thoughts are, I'm watching with bated breath to see what actually comes of all of this. And I may be naive, and maybe I am, and maybe sometimes I want to be. But I'm hoping that when the government tells me they're doing an investigation, regardless of who's in office, I'm longing for the days when I can go, okay, that's being handled, and I don't have to think about it, and they'll let me know what's happening after the fact. I understand that governments are going to lie to us sometimes because they think they're protecting us, sometimes because they're protecting themselves. I just choose to live in a world where if there's these three investigations that we're talking about, bungled or otherwise, I hope at some point I'm going to get some information. And I guess I'm just going to call it faith. And we can call it naivete, and maybe those two things are intermingled more often than they should be.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not disagreeing with men that we have inept, initial agencies have been screaming about this for years, that our initial agencies are corrupt. I think you have to look no further than people like it always used to be when they would say on the news, it's not the rank and file. I do believe it's the rank and file too that are corrupt. It's a near impossibility that the top doesn't go to the bottom, and it's a near impossibility. So to men's point, yeah, you have to clean out the FBI. You have to literally find probably 7,000 new, FBI officers. But this is going to take time. So we're not that far apart. I'm just saying we can't conflate certain things. And that's all I have to say about that. I want to thank you both. I want to thank people that are following and downloading. And don't forget to share this with your friends, share it with your enemies, share it with anybody. And we like to sometimes bring stories that, I just will end with this. It's fascinating how many people don't hear about certain stories that we bring up. And I'm very proud that we bring up stories like the Dearborn thing with the on the loudspeaker, and Golan brought up all the other places where they're screaming in the morning for 5 minutes doing chanting, not being covered by major news sites. They're just not. You're not going to see a lot of the stuff we talk about covered by major news sites or getting in depth on them. You're just not going to. Nowhere do you see Qatar being talked about. You don't, unless it's like Laura Loomer. She's the only one. So I feel honored and blessed that we try to find stuff that's a little off the grid or take a different take on it. So thank you all. You can find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. That's thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.